Change of scenery, huh? Nice view. So we have been talking about the Imperial Navy for some time now, and it has just occurred to me that we haven't once spoken about the most recognisable Star Destroyer model, that being the Imperial Star Destroyer. So, let's talk about it. These enormous floating monoliths are venerated as much as they are feared, and rightfully so. The Imperial 1 and 2 class Star Destroyer is a powerful symbol of the Empire as a whole, obscenely big, overbearing and casting a dark shadow on many of the poor souls who find themselves on the opposing end of these things. But we're not here to look at the societal effects of the Imperial class, no. Instead, we're delving into these ships from a marvel of engineering standpoint and appreciating them in that regard. And not, when they're busy blowing people up, but anyway. Starting off with the Imperial 1 class Star Destroyer. This model followed up from the Venator class and was the first sign of the Imperial Navy coming into its own ship design wise, but where the Venator was an attack cruiser outfitted for carrying infantry to and from different military sectors, the Imperial class is a warship through and through. And while it is capable of transporting a large amount of infantry, that's not its main purpose. It is a frontline assault capital ship capable of laying down an impressive amount of firepower as much as it is able to receive it. And speaking of which, let's look at the specs. With an impressive carrying capacity of around 40,000 total personnel on board, including officers, stormtroopers, pilots and passengers, 60 XX9 turbo laser batteries, 10 Q7 tractor beam projectors, 60 NK7 ion cannons, 6 dual heavy turbo lasers, 2 quad heavy turbo lasers, 3 triple medium turbo lasers, 2 medium turbo lasers, Gem-on 4 ion engines, 72 TIE fighters, 20 AT-ATs, 30 AT-STs, and a twin deflector shield generator and tractor beam targeting array. Wow. The Imperial 1 here is absolutely bloated full of tools to help it and its crew out in the battlefield, and it needs to be as such, as these ships are essentially floating settlements, housing thousands of people and need to be able to keep those people alive in order for it to function as a warship, which is why this ship packs a reinforced Durasteel hull along with a ship-wide shield for that added extra protection. This means that unless your enemy has access to bombers or ion weapons, a lot of improvisation and wit is needed in order to work around these things, as they are pretty much impenetrable without the help of any specialised weaponry. But that does not mean that they are entirely invincible, as many rebels throughout the years have really been able to stick it to these ships through creative thinking and well-executed planning, either intentionally or unintentionally. A prime example being the Ghost crew of Phoenix Squadron. One of the most famous Imperial ones would have to be the Chimera, which was the personal vessel of Grand Admiral Thrawn, gifted to him by the Emperor. I did a video all about it featuring him, but this ship was not your typical Imperial one. Not only did it have the most notorious and intelligent strategist commanding it, but it also had a far more precise set of turbo lasers that had a faster rate of fire but were less powerful. It was essentially a giant phantom that could run circles around most enemy ships. Well, before it disappeared, but I digress. As the Galactic Civil War came into full swing, these ships would eventually lose their iron grip as the favourite among most naval personnel, with that responsibility going to the following generation, the Imperial 2. This model would find itself in the thick of it, as its arrival couldn't come at a better or worse time depending on how you look at it. So what's so different about these metallic behemoths compared to their predecessors? Well, a few things. For one, their physical design characteristics are simplified to a certain degree, sporting less protrusions and just being more straightforward overall, being still very similar to its predecessors, but for those who know their Star Destroyers, you can tell the 1s and the 2s apart very easily. For example, the most recognisable aspect of the Imperial 1 was its tractor beam targeting array, which was now replaced with a communications tower on the Imperial 2. This is the most distinguishing characteristic when telling the difference between the two models, but that's not all. The Imperial 2 has an extremely powerful set of engines, sporting 3 Destroyer 1 ion engines and the usual Gem-on 4 ion engines, allowing the vessel to get up to a staggering 970 km per hour in atmosphere, which is absurdly fast considering the size of these vessels. To power these engines and by and large the entire ship, both the Imperial 1 and 2 Star Destroyers made use of a solar ionization reactor, or hyper-annihilation reactor, which is absurd as it sounds. This is what that bulbous bump on the underside of the ship is, and it works by creating a miniature star within the central reaction chamber, creating a vast amount of power for the rest of the ship to pull from, powering the electronics, weaponry, shielding, and the hyperdrive. And with that, time for specs. The Imperial 2 Class Star Destroyers come packed with an identical crew capacity as its predecessor, 60 XX9 turbo laser batteries, 60 heavy ion cannon, 10 tractor beam projectors. You know what? I think the Imperial 2 is largely identical to the Imperial 1 in terms of weaponry, so there really isn't any need to drag this one out. Now, what role do both of these ships occupy in warfare? Well, as I said, they are frontline assault ships, which should be obvious from the ridiculous amounts of firepower that they carry. But what does this mean? Well, these ships are the flagships of their respective fleets, and are responsible for leading assaults on planets, deploying TIE fighters, troopers and walkers in large quantities to overwhelm enemy forces. For blockades, these ships can take an iron grip on a planet and its upper atmosphere, ensuring nothing gets in or out, with only the most daring of adversaries stepping up to the challenge of trying to break free, using clever on-the-fly decision-making and excellent piloting skills in order to not go back the way you came as a pile of charred metal and starship scrap. These ships also pack enough firepower and firing range to level most moderately sized cities straight from orbit, meaning that blockades can become all the more dangerous when these ships are involved, as they are not even required to enter a planet's atmosphere if they feel that a planet and its inhabitants are not worth the bother. Where these ships truly excel, however, is when they cooperate with the TIE fighters of the Starfighter Corps, creating a truly formidable force capable of dispatching most enemy threats, with the Imperial class essentially being a mobile repair and resupply depot for TIE fighter squadrons, capable of rapidly dishing out damage in the form of overwhelming fighter and turbo laser barrages. The Imperial 1 and 2 Star Destroyers are no pushovers when it comes to combat, that's for sure. That being said, their size can be a detriment as they lack maneuverability, and as a result it often takes highly experienced and smart captains and admirals to oversee them, and knowing the Empire, that just isn't really the case a majority of the time. All too often do Imperial Class Star Destroyers fall victim to bombing runs and a lack of fighter support, which is the most crucial aspect to ensuring the survival and continued offence of these ships in battle scenarios. There are too many times where they will find themselves in less than fortunate situations, being pestered by smaller enemy fighters, and incompetent admirals and captains getting themselves into situations where the only way out is through the escape pod. Which may just be a good thing. I mean, we've seen how much destruction these vessels are able to cause in the hands of someone capable, like Thrawn. But either way, these monoliths are the Empire's most striking symbol of tyranny, and they certainly live up to their name, meaning keep your eye on the sky. So with that, why not consider leaving a like, commenting and subscribing to start your journey into the Empire today, and with that, long live the Empire and may the Force be with you.